The following podcast is based on publicly available documents and reporting. All facts presented are drawn from verified sources. Certain scenes are dramatized or reconstructed for clarity and storytelling purposes. All individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Listener discretion is advised. October 1991, Auburn, Indiana. 15,000 people, one main street, two stoplights that still click on schedule, even when nobody's there to see it. That morning, a convoy rolled off Highway 8. No escort, no announcement, just diesel smoke, sun-faded paint, and trailers stacked with steel beams, ride cars, and canvas tents with the color of old blood. The Carnival was coming to town. They set up on the fairgrounds behind the grain elevator, the same lot the county uses for the 4th of July fireworks and for the pumpkin sale in the fall. Within hours, the field started changing shape. A Ferris wheel half assembled, ticket booths unfolded like matchbooks, cables running through the mud towards a single generator that coughed and sputtered in the wind. People pulled over just to watch. Kids pressed their faces to car windows. Parents slowed down, leaning forward, trying to catch a glimpse of something odd. After months of nothing but harvest and high school football, Auburn suddenly had color, again.
We heard they were the Mid-America Fun Fair. Been through here before, years back. Folks said it was small but clean. You know, rides, lights, a few games. Nothing fancy, but it gave the kids something to look at. That's what we thought anyway.
By sunset, the first bulbs were strung between poles, a tangle of red and white that would come alive once the power lines were tested. You could smell it before you saw it. Fried batter, motor oil, dust kicked up by trucks hanging in the air like smoke. For a town built on routines, it felt like a shot of adrenaline.
Temptation travels on wheels, brothers and sisters. It sets up its tent for a weekend, then moves on. Be watchful.
Most people laughed that off, but a few didn't. To them, the carnival wasn't just noise and lights. It was a question. What kind of strangers are you letting this close to your children?
Michelle Niblick was curious, that's all. Said she might go down after work, watch them put the rides together. She liked how the lights looked against the cornfield. Said it made the town feel bigger, you know?
Michelle was 23, worked the counter at the Rusty Spoon, lived with her aunt on Maple Street. Nothing about her life made headlines. Not yet. But she would be the reason people in Auburn still talked about that week, 3 decades later. By Thursday, the carnival was nearly built. The ride stood still in the field, waiting for power. Rain threatened but didn't come. The ground felt charged, like something was waiting to turn on. And that's where every story like this begins. With a town that thinks it's getting a show and ends up getting remembered. Friday night, October 25th. Opening day for the Mid-American Fun Fair. From Main Street, you could see the Ferris wheel turning above the corn. Red, blue, yellow, a floating halo over a town that rarely looked up. By 6:30, the parking lot was full. Pickup trucks lined the ditch, headlights cutting through dust like fog lights in a war movie. It was the biggest crowd Auburn had seen all year.
We posted one unit near the gate just to keep things orderly. Folks were behaving. Families, couples, kids with plastic vampire teeth, you know. Normal Friday night stuff.
Normal, yes, but louder than usual. And in Auburn, loud always feels like something's about to break. The Midway smelled of corn dogs and motor oil. Teenagers screamed on the tilt-a-whirl. Carnival music fought the screams through old battered speakers. The whole place pulsed between thrill and headache.
Michelle showed up just after 7. She still had her apron in her bag. Bought a funnel cake, powdered sugar everywhere. She said, I needed to see some light.
She wasn't alone long. Carnival workers moved through the crowd like stagehands who knew every cue. One of them, Jimmy Fry, ride operator, 29, offered to win her a stuffed bear at the ring toss. Another, Tony Reese, older, quiet, kept glancing towards the generator trailers. They looked harmless enough. Everyone does, right up until they're not.
Jimmy was a talker, would joke with anyone. Tony, different, kept books, weird ones. Said he'd done time in Joliet. Said the Bible and the devil tell the same story if you read them backward.
Michelle laughed that off. To her it was carnival talk, half-truths sold between beers. She liked the edge. It felt grown up. By 9, the crowd thinned. Parents took kids home. The drizzle started, light enough to smear the neon into halos. Music slowed. Rides wound down. But some stayed. The ones who never want those lights to end.
That's when the weird stuff started, you know? They killed the main speakers for a minute, but you could still hear something, like chanting from behind the tents. Maybe it was just the generator, but it just sounded wrong.
Behind the rides, past a sagging orange fence, the carnival's other half lived. The trailers, toolboxes, coolers full of beer, a radio playing too low. That's where the noise was coming from. That's where Michelle wandered after 10. A witness later said she was walking with Fry, holding her jacket over her head against the rain. They crossed behind the generator line and disappeared into the dark.
We did a patrol at 22:30. The fair was closing. Nothing looked suspicious or unusual. We saw a couple folks by the trailers in conversation. Figured they worked there. They looked it, seemed to fit in with the rest of the workers.
That's how small towns work. You see what you expect to see. And nobody expects horror parked next to the cotton candy stand. Sometime between 10 and midnight, the carnival lights went dark one section at a time. The sound faded to the skeleton of itself. Just rain, metal cooling, and the smell of diesel. By morning, one trailer door was hanging open, and Jimmy Fry's hands were cut up with something he couldn't explain. Michelle never clocked in for her shift at the diner again. At dawn, the fairground looked like an abandoned movie set. Wet gravel, puddles reflecting the Ferris wheel frozen mid-turn. Coffee in styrofoam cups, hungover laughter that didn't sound earned. Auburn was waking up. But the carnival had already changed color, from bright to something dark.
There are doors you don't know you've opened until you hear them close behind you.
When the church bell rang that morning, it wasn't calling anyone to service. It was just marking time, the last hour before the search began. And if you stood on Maple Street, you could still hear the faint hum of the generator long after the power was cut, as if the carnival itself refused to shut down. Before the day was over, patrol cars would circle the fields. Before night fell again, the carnival would be nothing but a rumor in tire tracks. And Auburn, a place that believed it could tell good from evil, was about to learn it couldn't. Saturday morning, October 26th. The carnival lot looked half alive. Rides standing like skeletons that hadn't decided whether to lie down. Most of the crew was already packing up, pretending last night hadn't left the hole. Inside the diner, someone noticed Michelle's booth empty. Her apron still in the back room, tips from the night before folded neat inside a coffee mug. At first, nobody panicked. Auburn runs on late shifts and bad alarms. But by noon, her aunt had called the sheriff.
She wasn't the kind to disappear. If she was mad, she said so. If she was sad, you'd know. But silence? No, sir. That wasn't her.
Deputies started at the obvious places. The diner, her street, the fairground. The ground was still slick, tire ruts filled with cloudy water. Carnival men kept working, eyes down. One of them, Jimmy Fry, smoked 3 cigarettes without lighting a fourth. Said he'd cut his hand on a cable. Didn't explain why there was blood on both sleeves.
We asked about Michelle. They said she left around 10. We walked the fence line, found a shoe print, small, maybe hers. Figured we'd widen the search.
By late afternoon, the sheriff called in volunteers. Farmers, high school kids, the church men's group. They spread out through the north fields, shoulder to shoulder, combing wet rows of corn under a sky that couldn't decide between sun and storm. Auburn had done search parties before. Lost dogs, lost wallets, one runaway kid who came back in a Greyhound 2 days later. But this one felt different. People whispered instead of talking. Even the air had weight.
You ever walk a cornfield when it's quiet? You hear yourself breathe and start wondering if that's all you're gonna hear.
October 27th. The search party had been walking the north field for almost 2 hours when they found what they were looking for and what they wished they hadn't. The sky was low, colorless. They could smell rain hiding in the air and something else underneath. Iron, diesel, and the cold breath of an engine that hadn't run since the Carnival packed up.
We came up on a patch where the stalks were pressed flat, like something had knelt there. I remember the silence first. Not even bugs.
The first officer stopped moving, then the second. Then the whole line froze, the way people do when the world suddenly explains itself in a single, awful sentence. At 4:47 p.m., a volunteer found something caught in the stalks. A piece of cloth, white, turned brown with mud. 200 yards east, the rest of her. They radioed it in. They cleared the area. Sheriff called in the state police. Command car rolled up, lights spinning weak red across the corn. Detective stepped out, gloves on, breath visible. The field looked staged, like a set built for a nightmare. Candle stubs pressed into mud, half-burned symbols drawn in a shaky circle, beer bottles glinting like tiny mirrors. Everything about it said ritual, before anyone said the word out loud. One of the detectives muttered, "Either this is worship or theater." Nobody answered.
We cataloged everything. Footprints, wax residue, tire tracks. It was chaos pretending to be ceremony.
Nothing about the arrangement made sense. Too perfect in spots, too careless in others. The sheriff thought it was meant to scare. The younger deputy thought it meant to mean something. A backpack lay near the edge of the clearing. Inside, an ID. A diner receipt, a set of keys shaped like hearts. Proof enough.
We've got confirmation. Notify family.
By sunset, the field was like a movie shoot. Floodlights, flash cameras, plastic flags marked the smallest stains. Reporters arrived before the coroner left. One of them tried to film over the tape. A deputy blocked the lens with his hand. He looked angry, but mostly he looked tired. Detectives moved slow, photographing, measuring, whispering. They worked until midnight. Every detail bagged, every measurement taken twice. One of them threw up behind a cruiser, and then came back to finish his notes. When they finally zipped the last evidence bag, thunder broke on the horizon, and the rain they'd been waiting for finally came. The storm washed away footprints and ash, but not what the town had already decided. This was the devil's work, and the Carnival had brought him. By dawn, the story had shape. 2 drifters, a ritual, a sacrifice. Truth was smaller than that, but small truths don't sell papers. And the town that had been hungry for excitement finally had more than it could swallow.
We have strong leads linking the suspects to the scene. We're confident this was premeditated and symbolic in nature.
Symbolic. That word stuck. Because what they had found out there wasn't just a crime. It was a mirror. They called it ritualistic. Candles half melted, symbols carved into the dirt. A circle burned black into the ground. What it meant, no one could say. But once the word satanic hit the scanner, there was no taking it back.
We're investigating all possibilities. We have evidence of foul play, possibly linked to individuals associated with the traveling fair. We ask the public to remain calm and let the investigation proceed.
Every fear the town had pushed down for years was suddenly standing in the mud, looking back. The evidence went into boxes, soil samples, candle wax, scraps of cloth. But what really traveled home with the investigators was the smell. Wet earth and metal, and the sound of silence that wouldn't turn off. They said later that the generator at the fairgrounds still hummed the next night, even after the power was cut. No one checked. No one wanted to. That field on County 8 never grew corn the same way again. Locals say the soil's wrong now. Too soft, too dark. Maybe it's just runoff. Maybe the ground remembers. Either way, it's still there. If you drive past after midnight, roll your windows down, you'll hear the hum, and you'll know exactly where the lights used to be. Calm wasn't on the menu. By nightfall, every porch light in town was on. Parents pulled their kids inside. Preachers planned emergency vigils. The carnival was ordered to stay put. Reporters set up across from the Ferris wheel. They filmed against the lights. Pretty backdrop for a horror. The story wrote itself. Small town, satanic sacrifice, Halloween week.
Authorities here in Auburn are searching for answers tonight after the discovery of a young woman's body just half a mile from the Mid-America Fun Fair. Police have not ruled out ritual motives. Some people are using words like satanic and cult.
Inside the sheriff's office, Jimmy Fry sat in a metal chair, fingers wrapped in gauze. Across from him, Tony Reese stared at the floor. They'd been up all night. Both smelled like smoke and wet wool. Questions came fast. Answers slower.
She was fine. We were talking, that's all. She said she liked the lights. Next thing, she's gone. You think I done that? The devil's here, not me.
The tape hissed between sentences. The sound of guilt or bad wiring. Sometimes the same thing. Fry said the devil 5 times.
The devil. The devil. The devil!
Detective stopped counting after 3. In another room, Reese stayed silent for 9 minutes straight. When he finally spoke, it wasn't an answer. It was a prayer. Wrong words, wrong order.
He kept mumbling about offering protection. Said the lights had to stay on or the town would burn. Didn't make sense, but none of it did.
By Sunday morning, word had spread beyond Indiana. News vans from Chicago and Louisville lined the square. Tourists came just to stand behind the tape, as if tragedy could rub off like a blessing. The carnival was shut down, rides dismantled under police watch. Each piece tagged, numbered, stored as evidence. The Ferris wheel came apart section by section until only the axle stood, rusted and hollow, like a bone pulled clean.
We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. If you think evil can't find a home here, remember, it rents by the week.
The town wanted the devil to be real, because that made the story simpler. It meant the killer wasn't one of them. It meant that darkness could leave when the carnival did. But darkness doesn't need a truck to move. In the evidence locker, a knife, a cassette labeled Devil's Liturgy, a burned Bible missing its cover. The tape would later prove nothing, just static, snippets of music, maybe laughter. Still, it sounded like proof to anyone who needed it. That night, the sheriff drove home past the fairground. Only one light left burning, the ticket booth bulb they couldn't reach in the rain. He sat there in his cruiser for a long minute, watching it flicker.
I kept thinking, somebody wired that light. Somebody flipped that switch. Evil is just another word for somebody.
By Monday morning, both Carnival men were charged with murder. The town exhaled, told itself justice was working. But the question lingered in every diner and church pew. Was it really Satan? Or just two men who wanted to believe in something enough to kill for it? Auburn buried Michelle 3 days later. Closed businesses, filled pews, sang hymns through cracked voices. Outside, reporters filmed from the curb until the batteries died. The Carnival trucks left under escort, engines coughing out black smoke against the gray sky. Mud sprayed the roadside sign that used to read, "Welcome to Auburn." Now it just said, "Burn." What's left behind in a town like this isn't the headline. It's the space between porch lights when you walk home after dark. It's the sound of a Ferris wheel that isn't there anymore but still creaks in your head. It's the way people look at strangers when the fair comes back next year. Because it always does. The harvest was over, but Auburn hadn't learned the difference between reaping and reckoning. Spring, 1992. 6 months after the lights went out, Auburn had a new routine. Gossip, trials, and televised grief. Reporters filled the front row of the courthouse like they were at a premiere. The carnival was gone, but its ghost was selling papers.
Opening statements began today in what prosecutors call the most gruesome crime in DeKalb County history. The defendants, James Fry and Anthony Reese, showed little emotion.
The state called it ritual murder. The defense called it hysteria. Both sides agreed on only one thing. Michelle Niblick was dead, and someone needed to pay for it.
This was not random. It was deliberate. These men worshipped violence, and on Halloween week they acted out their faith in blood.
He pointed to candles in plastic bags, to a cassette that hissed like an old refrigerator, to a knife blackened by time. Evidence thin as breath, but in a town this frightened, it was enough.
Ladies and gentlemen, there was no ritual. There was a storm, a fight, and a death. The rest is rumor and fear.
The jury didn't care about nuance. They wanted the devil to be real. It made sense to the chaos. When they came back fast. Guilty on all counts. Life without parole.
Justice was served. Auburn can rest easier tonight.
But justice and rest aren't the same thing. The town slept with its lights on for years.
You can lock men up, but you can't lock up what they let in.
Auburn tried to move on. They cleaned the field, replanted grass where the Ferris wheel had stood. Kids used it for soccer practice. No one noticed the patches where the grass never grew right. Every fall, the leaves still turned the color of rust, like a reminder.
We stopped doing trick-or-treat that year. We did church parties instead. Safe candy, safe music. You can't scare the devil off, but you can stay home and wait him out.
The story turned into folklore. Teenagers dared each other to walk the old lot at night. They said you could still smell diesel when there was no wind. Said sometimes you'd hear a generator hum, just for a second. Auburn laughed at those stories in daylight, but every October, the laughter got thinner.
Mr. Fry, do you believe you were influenced by the devil?
No, ma'am. Devil didn't make me do nothing. Folks did. Fear did. You hear enough people call you evil, you start wondering if it's easier to just be it.
He'd been in prison 10 years when he said that. By then, Tony Reese was dead, suicide in his cell. The papers called it closure. It wasn't. In small towns, evil ages slowly. It doesn't vanish, it settles. Into gossip, into sermons, into the way parents say be careful without saying why. The carnival never came back to Auburn, not officially. But truckers passing through still swear they see light poles in that field from the highway, just for a blink, like someone testing the wiring.
I drive by there sometimes. You think about how quiet it got after, how quick joy can turn. We blamed the carnival, but it was us looking for monsters anywhere but the mirror.
That's the part no one prints. How much a town needs its monsters. They give shape to the dark. They give you someone to point at when the lights come back on. 3 decades later, the fairground is nothing but grass and rumor. But some nights, when the fog settles low, you can almost hear it. The slow creak of a Ferris wheel turning where no metal stands. Maybe it's memory. Maybe it's the story reminding you that every bright thing casts a shadow. And every town, no matter how quiet, keeps one light burning for the devil it knows. This has been File 187, Satan's Carnival. Written and produced by Joe McReynolds. Narration by Dan Cooley. We'll be back. New stories. Same purpose. Truth is louder when we listen. I'm Dan Cooley. Stay alert. Stay safe.